In over a century of professional boxing, legends like Jack Dempsey, Sugar Ray Robinson, and Muhammad Ali have etched their names into the history books by setting and shattering records, because that's how records work. Well, most of the time. As the sport evolved, some records have now been set that are so outrageous that you'd swear they've been made up. And it's these unbreakable records that we're here for right now. Let's start with a record that could easily be the greatest in boxing history, set by none other than Manny Pacquiao. And it wasn't set that long ago. The Pac-Man was a boxing machine. Bursting onto the scene in 1998 from the Philippines, he was a whirlwind of relentless punches and non-stop movement who baffled champions across more divisions than anyone before him. In 2010, Pacquiao made history as the first and only fighter to claim world titles across a staggering 8 divisions. But it's even crazier than that. Pacquiao skipped 2 whole divisions on his way up in weight, so his title wins actually span across 10 divisions. And that's just absurd. The closest anyone's come to Pacquiao's achievements is Puerto Rican icon Amanda Serrano. The real deal has titles in 7 divisions, but she didn't skip any. Plus, it has to be said that the level of competition in women's boxing wasn't close to what Pacquiao bulldozed his way through. As for the men, Oscar De La Hoya is the closest to Pacquiao's record. In 2004, the Golden Boy claimed a title in his 6th division, still too short of Pacquiao, whose record still stands to this day. Now let's talk about the only record that could rival Pacquiao's as the greatest record of all time, and that was set by Henry Armstrong in the 1930s. Armstrong was a 5'5" tornado of punches. With a record of 151, 21 and 9, and with 101 knockout victories, this guy was as relentless as they come. His nickname was Homicide Hank, for crying out loud. In 1938 though, Armstrong did the unthinkable by holding 3 world titles at once. And he did this when there were only 8 weight classes. He was the feather, light and welterweight champion of the world. Sure, other champs like Floyd Mayweather have held 2 simultaneous titles, but with junior this and super that, their divisions are just a few pounds apart. Armstrong was the featherweight champ when he skipped lightweight and won the welterweight title, and that's a massive 21-pound or 10-kilo difference. Then he moved down to claim the lightweight title between the 2. It's unheard of. Floyd Mayweather does have a record that stands strong in its own right though. But the one he brags about, the 50-0 record, is just not quite as impressive as he'd have you believe. Back in the 1880s and 90s, Aussie fighter Young Griffo lost his 8th fight and then went on a 124-fight unbeaten streak. In the 1910s, Welshman Jimmy Wilde went his first 104 fights before he tasted defeat. And if those records seem a little ancient for you, in 1993, when Mayweather had already turned pro, Julio Cesar Chavez reached fight number 90 without suffering a loss. That's 40 more than Mayweather, and JCC did that in just 13 years. That makes 50 fights without a loss seem pretty tame. But what does make Mayweather's 50-0 stand out is that it includes 24 wins over former or current champions. The next closest is arch-nemesis Manny Pacquiao, who beat 22 champions, and with both men retired and champions fighting less frequently, it's unlikely anyone will ever catch up to them. Someone else who no one looks like ever catching up to is Harry Greb, who holds a record that some say even outshines Mayweather's. Across his storied career, Greb beat 16 Hall of Famers, the most in history, and several of them he beat several times for 33 victories in total. Mayweather and Pacquiao have beaten just 7 apiece, and let's face it, neither of them is likely to add another 7 to their resumes. Speaking of Hall of Famers, pound-for-pound legend Archie Moore has a record that'll make champions everywhere jealous for the rest of time. Moore, known as the Mongoose, was the longest reigning light heavyweight champion, holding his title from 1952 to 1962. But that record could be beaten. However, he also holds the record for the most fights won via knockout by a championship-level fighter, with 132. By comparison, Sugar Ray Robinson comes in second with only 109. Moore's knockout record is partly a product of his incredible longevity. He started boxing in 1935 and didn't retire until 1963. They didn't change his name to the Old Mongoose for nothing. Speaking of old, it's hard to imagine someone breaking Bernard Hopkins' record as the oldest world champion. In 1962, Moore was stripped of the light heavyweight title at the age of 48 for moving to heavyweight. It was unthinkable that someone would ever beat that. But in 2013, at 48 years of age, Hopkins claimed the light heavyweight title, and he didn't stop there. A year later, he made his second defense at the age of 49, making history and breaking Moore's record in the process. On the other end of the spectrum, we've got Wilfred Benitez, who became the youngest world champion ever at just 70. While others may have won titles at 18, Benitez wasn't even old enough to vote or drink in most countries. And now, let's wrap up with some quickfire records that are pretty much untouchable. George Foreman holds the record for the longest gap between titles, winning his first heavyweight championship in 1973 and his second an incredible 21 years later. Tommy Burns was the shortest heavyweight champ ever. He stood at just 5'7" or 170 centimeters. That's a full foot shorter than Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder. Then there's Harry Greb again, who in 1919 amassed a record 45 wins without a loss. Let me say that again. That was 45 wins without a loss in just 1 year. And finally, in 1948, Joe Louis made his record 25th consecutive defense of the same championship belt. That's a feat no one has yet come close to matching. Even more impressive, Louis did it at heavyweight. And given how boxing is today, it's pretty safe to say this record, just like all the rest we covered, will never be broken.
Thanks for watching, and remember, if you want more fight sports in your life, just hit the subscribe button.